Warning. This episode contains foul language, references to murder and trauma, and discussions about death and what comes after.
Hello, weirdos! You are listening to Keep It Weird, the podcast for all things strange, unusual, paranormal, supernatural, creepy, sticky, gross, scary, and everything in between. Each week we sit down with a guest, or just each other, and we talk about something weird. This episode is just one part of 3 that make up our season finale. We were visited this year by some interesting Christmas ghosts. And guess what? Every moment we experienced was recorded just for you. You are about to hear our time with a very intelligent and absolutely whimsical, lovely spiritual wellness healer and medium named AMY GOLDENBERG. We were so excited to welcome her back. She is a favorite of ours, a favorite of yours. Everyone who speaks with her leaves the conversation forever changed because she just brings the hope of Christmas future. Finally, a Christmas ghost we don't have to be afraid of. Let's look positively into the future with Amy. Snuggle up by the fire with your eggnog and join us. My name is Lauren, and this is my co-host, Ashley.
Hi, weirdos.
Oh, the final finale.
One. Man, oh man.
Season 4. Here we are.
Our 100th episode.
100 and... Yeah, 100 and some change. We're up there, man. I'm very proud of us.
Me too. And especially with like all of our YouTube stuff. I mean, we've got like 300 hours worth of content, which is pretty cool.
There's a lot of Ashley and Lauren content out there in the world, so if you're going to miss us on our tiny little break after this episode, just go back and re-listen to some oldies, or check us out on YouTube, or, I don't know, creep on our Instagram and stare at our faces, whatever you're into.
Whatever's your favorite way to inject us into your veins. I actually really like your outlook on the ghost of Christmas future, because for me, it's like kind of the scariest ghost.
It is. It usually comes across that way, which is why I kind of liked... Yeah, I liked this little flip that Amy kind of gave us in this episode that you're about to hear, weirdos, is that, like, we are in a crazy time right now, but it's not all bad looking ahead. There is hope.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you're being visited by 3 ghosts on Christmas Eve, your future is not looking bright, but...
Exactly.
The good thing is, and the lesson you learn from A Christmas Carol is that you can always change it.
That's right. You can always change it. We can change the future.
We are the future. The future is female. The future is weird.
We are the world. Okay.
Hopefully this episode with Amy brings you comfort and joy. Hi, Amy.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh my gosh.
I'm so excited
We're so
to be
happy
here
you're back.
in my own office.
In my own home. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amy, this is not something we say to all our guests. I promise you. You are like one of the most loved guests we've had on this show. Like, people are so excited to hear from you again. So we are pumped you're here. Listeners are pumped you're here. It's a glorious day.
I'm really excited too, and it's very flattering to hear that. And I've actually been able to connect with so many people from being on the other episodes of the podcast that I was on. And I have there's some clients I work with like their entire family, and I'm not going to be specific because they're anonymous, but like
HIPAA regulations.
They know who they are, and I love them so much. And I have a little cactus sitting on my desk that their family gave me, and they're so wonderful. I work with them since the first time I was on your podcast, pretty much. So and then all these other awesome people that I've been able to do, weirdos that I got to do sessions for, and I've done multiple sessions for, and like I've taught classes, and it's really like so lovely, and I'm so excited to be back on here, even though it's kind of weird talking to myself in a room.
Oh, yes.
By myself. I wish I could
here.
be making eye contact with you guys.
I know. We have those moments all the time where it's like, I'm glad we can make this work. Thank you, technology, for letting remote recording work. But I'm missing like Ashley's facial expressions when we record, It's just not the same.
Yeah.
It isn't. But it warms my heart to know that we were able to bring so many people to you and you to so many people. And I'm sure that's just going to continue because we get new listeners every day and new listeners are discovering you all the time. But for anyone who doesn't know, if you like just started the show, Amy came on the show a couple of times, actually. You have 4 episodes in season 3.
Yeah.
You were in our season premiere of season 3. There were 2 episodes called Higher Self-Care and A Better Flashlight. And we talked about sort of how you discovered you were a medium, how you've honed your skills. We also talked about the history of mediumship as well as scientific findings regarding psychic abilities. It was awesome. And then you and I did another 2-parter in season 3. Life, Death, and the Pursuit of Spirit and Believing is Seeing are the titles of those. And that was a little bit more intimate. It was more focused on you, and you were able to answer listener questions about death and the afterlife and connecting with your spirit. And I have to tell you how I don't think I could count how many of our listeners have told me and Lauren that when they're having a rough time, like depression or anxiety or faith-wise, they go back and re-listen to the episodes you are in, and it makes them feel better.
Yeah.
Wow,
It's incredible.
That like makes me tear up a little bit.
Doesn't it make you feel good?
Yeah.
It makes me feel good.
Yeah, because that's what my goal is to help people be able to find their own practice
Peace and practice.
Yeah, and their own wellness and spiritual wellness, and so that's really touching, and I'm just happy that I can help people feel better.
It's working. You're doing it.
My goal is to help people feel better.
Well, it certainly seems that's why you're here, because you have that effect on people. It seems
Yes, you do.
We'll just go right into questions because we have quite a few, but I really liked this one because it's sort of, we did talk to you about this in the last episodes that you were on, but have you had any more experiences with past lives in the last year since you were on the show?
I actually did just have a small past life like vision. Oh, since I was on the show. Oh, yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Something big?
Yeah, I had so I went to see this woman in Ojai, and I had like an energetic clearing done. Oh my God, you guys, this is so crazy. This experience is so crazy, and it sounds so fake. So it's like it's one of those things where I'm just like, this is embarrassing, but this is what happened.
I mean,
I'm pumped to hear this.
Since I was a little kid, I've been like very aware of Ted Bundy and like his energy. And that's something I never really told anybody about because it was really scary. Anyway, so this is like this story is fucking crazy. Anyway, so I went and got this energetic clearing from this woman because I have certain kind of ailments that I believe are connected to like past life experiences. And so one of them is actually one of them is like a stomach sensitivity. And so she started doing the clearing on me, and I had like this vision of being poisoned like in, like thousands of years ago because I heard information I wasn't supposed to hear. And so I was like murdered, whatever. So that was a thing that happened. But then the second thing that happened was like, I started like getting really emotional, and I had this like, I started having this vision, and I was like talking to this woman who was doing the clearing on me. And I was like, hey, so I'm like seeing my body in a field, and I believe that I was like murdered by somebody. And then I kept getting more information, and she was like, yes, I'm seeing that also. And I was like, so I don't think this guy did this like once. I think he did this like a lot of times. I can't believe I'm sharing this story. It's so ridiculous. Anyway.
I'm hanging on your every word right now, so keep going, please.
Because I was even embarrassed saying it to her, because I was like, this is so, this sounds like bullshit. Anyway, she was like, yep, I'm getting that too. This was a serial murder. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, all right, okay. This is going to sound totally crazy, but it's Ted Bundy. And she said, all right, I wasn't going to say anything because I thought that sounded totally crazy because I'm seeing his face also. So yes, it's him. So we both got the same download. And then I saw the full, it's almost like maybe it was the first time, it's not a victim that is known of. And I got this whole vision of working in a diner, and there were a lot of pine trees around. It looked like the Pacific Northwest. And this man came in and was sitting at the diner bar, and we were talking, and he was really nice, and I didn't have a car, and he offered to give me a ride home, and then I never made it home. And I've always had this really intense fear and connection to being murdered, and obsession with it since I was really little, to the point where it would be inappropriate for a child to even know these things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we walked through this whole past life experience, and it was in the 1960s. I could see the landscape and everything.
Have you been able to go and do any sort of research trying to find maybe a diner waitress who was found in a field around that time?
I actually haven't tried that. I probably could, but
I'm pretty good at it. So if you want to give me all the info
yeah.
you have, I might be able to just
yeah. It's
she can be the
time on the
sleuth
internet
for you.
Yeah, they're from what I felt, it was this person was never found or something. But if they were yes, I would absolutely.
Or never identified even.
Yeah. So
it would be a little tougher.
But yeah, that it was weird because I can feel particular spirits around, and I didn't notice because he had been around so frequently. I didn't notice that he was until that day, because that day her and I worked to help him cross over and transition, because while he did very horrible things that are unforgivable acts, he was a deeply mentally ill person, and from what I understand, he did not want to be doing those things. It was a compulsion that he couldn't control, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
not apologizing for his behavior at all, but when you have that connection with a spirit, because we all have ancestors that did horrible things, and so knowing that they were sick and traumatized and all these things to help them let go of that stuff and move on.
Well, you even you learn about trauma just in therapy in general, and you learn about the fact that you could be in therapy about saying things my father physically abused me, blah 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 blah, and you have all this hatred or whatever towards your father who did that to you, but a good therapist will tell you not necessarily forgive them, forgive and forget, whatever, but maybe try and focus on what made them that way, because what made them that way was trauma.
Yeah.
So they were traumatized somehow as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's just it's like that with everyone, and once you shed this shell, then I'm sure it becomes more clear that even the people that they're I enjoy killing, I kill because I want to, they might pass on and realize oh, I was being compelled, I didn't even know it.
Yeah, and I don't really I'm not super invested in working with that being or that person. There's a lot of dead people that I would rather spend my time with. But that was just a crazy experience, and it was so weird because it's when you're in water and you're a fish, you don't notice you're in water until the water's gone. And so once that energy was out of my field, I was oh, whoa, that energy has been there for a really long time. And I'm happy that lady, that the medium that I was working with, who I do trust as somebody who is not like a charlatan was able to like corroborate that or validate that for me, because I
absolutely
was so embarrassed to even say it because it just sounds like bullshit. It's like people being like, Marilyn Monroe haunts my house.
Exactly.
And you're like, okay, calm
It's like,
down.
all right, does she though? Well, that's a question that I have too. You know, being around other mediums or other psychics or whatever, do you ever get conflicting downloads? Because I know you've said on the show before that like sometimes you're given an answer that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the correct answer, but it's the answer that you need at that moment.
Yeah, that is a good point. I'm thinking how to word this, because basically like I'm interpreting information that I'm receiving through my own filter. So like I could be getting the same download as someone else and interpreting it differently.
That's true.
I didn't even think about that.
In that sense, yes, I suppose. But I don't really... Most of the people that I know who are highly sensitive individuals who are like call themselves mediums or act as mediums, I really only know a very small handful that I like will listen to anything that they're channeling.
Right.
For me, the way I operate is like I have like a code of ethics that I operate by. So like if there could be somebody who's a very good medium, but if they're not ethical in other areas of their life, or if they're like highly capitalistic, then I'm not really going to... It's like the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So like I don't trust their filter as much as I don't trust their... Like more than I don't trust somebody's like download.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That kind of answers another like question that we had written in. I don't know if you saw that one, Ashley. I think somebody asked like how you feel about mediums who are like on TV and like clearly doing it for money, if you kind of give them the eye roll.
How do you view mediums on TV, like Lisa Caputo / the Long Island Medium, John Edwards and Amy Allen on the Dead Files? I don't know who most of those people are.
I actually do know who Amy Allen is. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
Okay.
Yeah.
So are there any like ones that you consider legit, or like is it an eye roll all around? Because it is entertainment, you know.
Yeah,
sure.
First and foremost, it has to be entertaining, or you're not going to get a TV show.
Yeah. And it has to also be like relatively accurate, or you're not going to get a TV show.
That's true. Yeah.
You know? So like I can't go into, because it's such a trope now for like mediums to be like, oh, does anyone have a dead grandmother? And
it's like,
name
yeah, we
starts
all
with
do.
Us,
of course.
Then, you know, right? So with like Lisa Caputo, I feel like her, I do think she's a medium, and it's like, it's not fun or easy to be a medium when you're growing up in society. So like if that's how she functions, because that's how she's able to like make life work for her, then I can like respect that. It's different than what I do. Like I generally try not to... I don't really channel dead people to like random strangers. I think that's like, that's not ethical to me. That's like not consensual. So like I'm not going to go up to someone in the market and be like... I used to do that. I did actually when I was younger, because I was like, I just thought it's like, oh, I'm getting this information, like I have to tell them. And it's like, just because you're getting bothered by a dead person doesn't mean that like you have to tell them. And like I've had that go very wrong. Like I've had that go very badly and like been really upsetting to people, because like some people's belief systems don't support that.
Right.
Like if you go up to them and say something like that, they're going to be upset, and it's going to like degrade their mental health potentially. Like it's not for everybody to have that belief system. So I don't think that she's faking it. I also don't really watch that show. I've seen it a few times just because I'm like, ooh, cool. I feel represented, sort of.
It could definitely be. It's a television show. We all know how TV works, at least people, those of us who worked in LA. So a lot of the situations could be set up situations where it's like it's not necessarily that she's lying, but she's also not approaching a stranger. She's actually approaching someone who was asked to be on the show. Yeah.
The producers selected them. They set up the situation. You see that all the time. And it's like, that's exactly right. Her talents could be legitimate, but...
I also,
who knows?
I also just feel like that style of mediumship is kind of outdated. And like what I do transforms over the years, but at this point, like what I would refer to myself as like a spiritual wellness guide and medium, because I don't like predict shit for people. Like I'm going to help you develop a connection.
Yeah.
Be able to feel like a healthy human being.
Which is more working together towards a goal and not just like approaching
a
you
party
and
trick.
telling you a thing. Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I think a lot of people feel a certain way towards, especially her specifically, simply because she's a very aggressive person. But that's not the medium part of her. That's the Long Island part of her.
Yeah, that's Long Island, baby. That's what'll get you.
Yeah, my dad's from Long Island, so I can understand that. Yes, for sure. Yeah.
You know a little bit about that.
Of the bluntness and just like the kind of it's like extreme confidence. Which
that
is great.
A great way to put it.
But yeah, I wouldn't say anything like bad about her. If she is, I have to like connect with somebody on like a deeper level to know if I would believe that their channel is that open. But it's hard being a medium. So like if that's the way she functions, like, and she's been able to be successful and not be like ostracized and like, wanting to like disappear off the face of the earth because it's so like challenging feeling that many things all the time, like good for her.
Yeah.
And then like I think if I remember correctly, because Amy Allen, I think the Dead Files was on like so long ago. I can't really remember too much about it, but I think she used to like go in, it was almost like a crime medium.
Oh.
Or maybe I'm totally wrong.
Would she work with like law enforcement, like that sort of mediumship?
No. I think I'm totally fucking this up. Okay, so what I think she did was like she worked with a like paranormal investigator, and she was like the medium, and so they would go to like these houses and kind of like try to download like what ghosts are in the house and like why it's haunted and who's. And she would see like, okay, who's here and like what's going on, and like that's a cool way to use that gift especially if you're helping like spirits to like cross over and not be like taking up space and like fucking wreaking havoc on people energetically. But yeah, I don't have a lot of I think I don't have a lot of negative opinions about mediums who just because it's like if you can figure out how to survive, like, and if that's the way that you're normal, like, normalizing a spiritual connection to more people than and just giving people hope that like, oh, there is something maybe out there, then I think that's positive, but
you're respecting the hustle.
I respect
They're going
the hustle.
For it.
I can't do things money. Like that. I can barely do social media, so I don't know. I could never do television thing, but
yeah,
oh man,
tough.
Especially like with that many people watching and like, and while you're channeling, it's like, whoa, that's scary.
Yeah.
And just knowing so many people might question you and come after you. And it's just like, yeah, you have to deal with enough stress and challenges already. As you were saying, it's hard being a medium. I just think that is just piling it on. It'd be so difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. And like when you're this sensitive and somebody's like a hater, if you have like 100,000 haters,
oh gosh,
like
I can imagine.
You can feel it, dude. You can like feel that. And it's like, ugh, no thank you.
Ooh. Yeah.
I selfishly threw in a question.
Awesome. Let's hear it. I'm excited
because I'm interested. What does the spirit world think of 2020 is the first part. And then the second part is I've seen a lot of psychics and mediums on mostly social media, TikTok, things like that, saying that something big is something big is coming, that it's very good, but it's going to change the world. And I wanted to know if you've been getting any of that information as well.
Ooh, these are good.
Yeah, I got that download 2 years ago before I moved.
Yeah, we were talking about that, Lauren, right before you got on the call about how, I was like, I wish that Joe and I had gotten out of the city before before COVID hit, because it would have been so nice to have a yard and like be in a
have
less
more
stressful
space.
place and place that like we could afford more. And she was like, yeah, remember I I got that
Oh my
message to
gosh.
leave.
Is that why you moved? Because you got the message to get out?
Yeah. Yeah. Because
Oh, wow.
I struggle with like depression, and so
Mhm.
for me, being in Los Angeles during this time would have been really bad for me. And so it definitely was a true download for me. But what I feel about that, the way that I've interpreted that information of something big is coming, it's like, it is clearly very evident that something big has already come, like 2020 is, and this isn't my opinion, this is like the information I've received is, through my filter of myself. But, we're seeing systems that don't work that are breaking down. We're seeing like, how being the worker bees for these like high powered billionaires is not, fulfilling and not satifying us.
Not
we're
sustainable.
we're seeing how our healthcare system doesn't like take care of us. We're seeing like all these things like just we're seeing the truth in all of these different really like horrible ways. And that is a really big deal. And that is a really big thing. And it is bringing upon change. And something else that I've understood and seen within myself and my clients is like that we're a lot of mediums and like spiritual people are talking about this like big ascension, and it's like, oh, we're gonna like shift into this like next dimension that we're gonna live in. And it's like, it's not, in my opinion, it's not going to be like, it's not going to appear differently. It's just the way that we are experiencing it is different. So like people who are not hyper emotional are starting to like have to experience their trauma and experience their like emotions and these things that they have been neglecting. Like their emotional body is becoming more integrated with their physical body. And I think a lot of us are experiencing that, or like for me, I'm integrating more with my physical body because I'm so spiritual minded that now I'm having to like do more work in the physical, and I'm just like, it's like almost like all of my energetic bodies and my spiritual body and my physical body are all becoming like super integrated. And I think that's the ascension. That's my opinion. Because historically, like, it is a dramatization to like imagine like, oh, there's just going to be some cataclysmic crazy event, or like aliens are going to come here and like blow up Washington, D.C. or like,
or we're going to wake up and it's going to be 5D instead of 3D. Or...
Yeah. And like that,
I feel like that's what people are expecting.
Yeah. And I feel like that's just our like capitalist conditioning, is that it has to be like so extreme, and it has to be like, it's like, oh, we're going to like see like fairies and angels and shit.
Time.
And it's like, but it's like, well, have you like, for me, don't you notice that like a flower is like the craziest thing that's ever existed? It's like so beautiful, and it has to grow in such a particular way to be the colors that it's just like everything is so already so magnificently complicated that it doesn't have to be this like a big giant thing. I think it's more of a like us becoming more sensitive to the world that we already live in.
It definitely seems to me that it's going to happen on like an individual level.
And there's also like a lot of like collective ancestral work being done, and the ancestral shadow and the collective shadow of our culture is like, we're having to look at that stuff, and we're having to like look at the conditionings that we've undergone in this, society that we live in, and how a lot of them are not good for a lot of people. And we have to acknowledge that stuff and like, and integrate it. And like, that is a spiritual awakening. It doesn't have to be like, I mean, I think it is magic, but it doesn't have to be like fantastical magic. It's like, we are undergoing a huge thing, and it is a spiritual transition. And like, I've had some clients that are like, just like, having spiritual experiences that they don't really even know what to do with, and it's just like too overwhelming, or just like people that like decide that they've taken some time and they're like, oh, I'm going to change my entire life because this doesn't resonate with me. And I've never noticed that before. So the time we're in is like, everybody is making these huge changes. And like, that is the big thing. That's what I think, you know, that it doesn't have to be some crazy like tidal wave or, you know.
I was going to say, you just have to look at the year 2020 and see like the big things are happening because, I mean, we talked about this on our kind of like 2020 recap episode that we recorded, but it's like as challenging and very sad that the pandemic has been, this has also been a season of just like waking people the F up. Like everybody's just seeing things in a different light. I've never seen so many protests, so many people, you know, jumping into activism. I think so many huge, beautiful things have also happened this year that make it worth it in the end, where it's like, we shouldn't just say, let's throw 2020 away. Like those are all the memes and the jokes or like, let's just forget about this year. But it's like, no,
we
this
learned
year
a lot.
So much change. Yeah.
It'd be a shame to forget it.
Yeah, and once you see something, you can't unsee it. So it's like once you notice that you're living in a miserable way, you're not going to go back to living in that way comfortably. Like, that's not going to happen. So the idea of just like, oh, let's pretend this year never happened. It's like, okay, really good luck with that. You're going to have to take a lot of drugs in order to do that. Because you're not going to be able to, you can't go back to living in the darkness once you've seen like the light. That's just not how, unless you try really, really hard.
Yeah, you have to actively ignore it.
Yeah. And it's not easy, you know, it's damaging.
It's a lot easier to embrace the new stuff.
Just embrace it and say like these challenges and, you know, the rough times that happened in 2020 made me who I am and built me up in a different way. Just hold on to it.
I do want to talk about the collective grief and like how there is we are losing a lot of really wonderful people in this time, and it is very sad, and it's not something that I'm like it's good because it's, you know, it's not it's bad, and it's very much like showing the flaws in the care systems that we have, just so many flaws, but yeah, like it, you know, and I do feel that like grief and that sadness like pretty frequently about just like how there's a lot of people that are transitioning right now, and it's like heavy and it's hard. And like I've heard some, I don't know if this comes off like insensitive, maybe cut this out, but I don't know if this would be like helpful to some people. But and I do believe in predestiny and almost like soul contract type stuff, where a lot of people who are crossing over, they have made this soul contract to make that choice and then come back in a new body once this, you know, transition has occurred. And that is kind of hopeful, I feel like. It's not just like for nothing. And I also do believe that the way we die is the way that we're supposed to die, and that we've already agreed to that before we came in. And potentially, you know, making karmic, I don't know how to say this. It's like it's
fulfilling karma?
Kind of, but it's like they're making like a karmic sacrifice for the greater good of humanity by like choosing that pathway.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's what my understanding is. But it's also like sometimes I feel like I can come off kind of insensitive when I talk about death because I'm pretty comfortable with it, and because I believe that, you know, there is more to life than just our 3D or our physical experience.
Age 0 to 85 or however long you're lucky enough to make it.
Yeah, so I do want to like reiterate that I'm not taking
I'm not
it
an asshole.
lightly. Yeah, it's also not like, I don't think that there's also this weird like part of the spiritual community that are just like, I think, idiotic, that are like, oh, you know, like people are resonant fit to like getting sick, you know, and it's like, I think
what does that mean?
It's basically like the frequency that you resonate at like attracts whatever your circumstances are in life.
Sickness or
right.
which being poor or whatever.
Yeah, to a degree, to a degree I can agree with, but I think what that highlights more is that the systems that we have oppress certain people to where they are in a position where they're going to have these problems. So
Right.
like this is, we still need to change the systems. Like even if the spiritual
Yeah.
community is like, oh well, like if they were just like more like positive or whatever, this wouldn't happen.
Oh,
It's like,
God.
no, okay, that's fucking canceled and it's racist and weird.
Yeah. We have to move on from that.
Yeah, and I think that even within the spiritual community, there is an awakening to the importance of participating in the physical world that we live in rather than like spiritual bypassing. And like it is our responsibility to address the physical systems that we live in. There's a reason that we were born into a body to do that. So, you know,
Yeah.
I've had some
Right.
beef with some spiritual community people this year because there's been, you know, kind of like even that world has been broken open and like people have been, their true colors have been shown, and it's like it's pretty disappointing. But I've also had some like really good experiences with new people who like want to, you know, do the right thing and not just like use
Right.
spirituality as a way to be like, well, in my past life I'm so enlightened that I'm actually like above this and I like don't have to participate in it. And it's like, no, that's
It's like, well, then why are
elitism,
you here?
know? Like you're just participating in capitalism by believing that. So like get back down here.
Well, it is interesting that you say that even like the spiritual, because I can't think of a single structure or group or organization or whatever of people that haven't sort of had to examine themselves and the people around them this year for one reason or the other. Whether it's, you know, a billionaire who made millions and millions more during COVID, having to see people stand in food lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe they think nothing of it. Maybe they're like, so what? But, you know, it is something that you have to examine it. We're being forced to examine things that maybe we, like, for example, you know, I was one of the people that before Trump was in office, I was really, honestly, truly, I thought that this country wasn't super racist anymore.
Yeah.
I really, because I didn't see it. I mean, I knew that there were people that were a little, you know, I knew there were people back where I come from who said things that were a little off color, but I was like, but they wouldn't actually do anything to hurt the Black community, like just because, but you know, I was 100% wrong, and I had to really come to terms with that.
Yeah.
And I think everyone's kind of had to like learn people's true colors, or, you know.
Yeah, and just.
But it's nice to know that even enlightened people had to get shook up a little bit.
It makes me feel better.
Yeah, the spiritual community is like notoriously like white supremacist. Like it's like they totally it's not something that is spoken about, but it's like they, you know, tokenize people of color, and they white spiritual leaders totally appropriate cultures that they have nothing to do with. And like I've had some teachers that I really respected that I had to like totally cancel this year because they just would not take responsibility and they would not make any reparations, and it was pretty gross. And so I had to move on and be like, wow, no. And also examine my own spiritual practice and be like, what am I like, how am I helping? Like, how is my practice inclusive? You know, so I do actually, now I offer like monthly BIPOC reparation sessions. So if you're a person of color and you would like a session with me, you can get that complimentary. I do a couple of those a month.
I saw that on your website.
Yeah. Sorry, I feel like I just like blathered on so much about that
Oh my
question, but I
God.
think it's really important for, you know, people to acknowledge that like having a spiritual practice, especially now in 2020, it's like having a spiritual practice also includes like the physical world that we live in. It's not a way to like bypass that stuff. Like we have to participate.
It's not a way to like escape what's going on.
Exactly.
It's a way to sort of like embrace what's going on and do something about it.
Definitely.
Okay, so next question. I like this one. Do our recently deceased relatives or loved ones care what we do with their bodies? Like, say they wanted a big honkin' funeral pre-death, but you, the living, could only afford cremation, or vice versa. Like, they didn't want a big fuss, but you, the living, did. Intuition tells me they don't care, but do you know?
Yeah, I was really thinking about this one earlier today. I think that is very individual. So like, because one of my friends who is a medium, they are also a hospice nurse.
Oh, okay.
They're not a practicing.
That must be hard.
Actually, it's kind of their gift. So
True.
they're good at helping people transition. But yes, it's hard for sure. It's not like an easy job. But it's something that they're equipped for. And they don't like practice as a medium reading clients, but they do. That's how they like utilize their gift, is through medical healthcare. And she was telling me a story about one of her patients who passed away, and that they wouldn't leave the room until their body was completely cleaned. So like afterwards they like clean the body, and they like put the, you know, clothes a certain way, and like, and then once this person who had left their body was like satisfied with how the body was taken care of, then they left. So I think it's kind of like individual. I feel like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like that would be different for everybody. So like, I might not really care, but that might not be true. Just our bodies are sacred things. Like, they are the vessels for our souls in this lifetime. So like, we do have an attachment to them. It's not like they're just some, you know, piece of crap clothing that we can throw away. Like, you know,
Yeah, it's not like you pass on and then you're immediately like, that's trash.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not like, I don't think you're going to get haunted if you're like, we can't afford to have a big ceremony, so we're going to do a cremation because it's more affordable for our family. It's like, I think what's more important is that you're doing a ceremony at all, and that you are acknowledging the passing of a loved one. I don't think they're that particular about, oh, they didn't bury my body and they did this with it instead, or whatever it is. I think it's more the energy behind
being acknowledged.
Yeah, being acknowledged,
being
and
like you're having your life honored a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And like, that doesn't really have to do with a body at all, that like type of ceremony.
Yeah. Or the size of a ceremony.
Right.
It doesn't really have to do with that.
Yeah, because it's like, if the energy behind something is there, it doesn't matter how big or small it is. You can have the most extravagant funeral ever, but if like you don't,
it could be
if
empty.
You're like, yeah, if you're checked down, you don't really care about it, then that's less, you know, energetically meaningful. But I actually do think dead people care about their bodies to an extent. Obviously, they can't use it anymore. But I feel like when I die, I will be like, I love my body, and I hope that it gets like cared for well, you know, before it's put into, you know, cremation, or before it's like put into, I mean, I want to be put on a funeral pyre and burned at sea, but you know, that's just me. But like, if my family's unable to do such a, you know, whatever, and they end up doing something
extravagant thing.
Yeah, then that, I don't think that they necessarily care about that. But again, all dead people are different.
Part of you thinks that, you know, as soon as you do pass on, you become so much more enlightened. But I don't know if that's true right away.
Yeah, to a
it's
degree.
not like you become the stars immediately.
Yeah, no. And I have like my working theory, because none of this stuff is provable. My current working theory is that our body is like our physical body, our spiritual body, and our emotional body, which is kind of like our personality and our identity and stuff, that's what the emotional body represents. And so when our physical body dies, I think that our spiritual body becomes more enlightened, but the emotional body can actually be like kind of toxic and weird, and like that's what ghosts are, and like that's why they're so sad or angry or mean or whatever, because it's just like unprocessed emotions. So I don't know how much a ghost, which that's what I would call a ghost, would care about their body. But yeah, I feel like I don't really have a good answer for that one, just because I'm like, that's very particular.
You have to have the answer for everything.
No, I'm not. These are just my
I'm not omnipotent.
You know? But based on my friend's experience of being a hospice nurse and noticing that, you know, one of her patients didn't want to leave fully until the body was cared for in a certain way. And it didn't have to be like, well, no, you need to clip the nails and you need to do this and this, and you need to put like, you know, this jewelry on or whatever. It was more that it was being tended to in some way that was more important than how it was being tended to. Or I guess as long as it's not being defiled in some horrible way. But
Right.
yeah, so I don't know. That's my answer for that one.
No, that was a good way to explain it. And now I'm really hoping my sister is listening because she's a hospice nurse she's not a medium, but she's a hospice nurse with a lot of sensitivity. Yeah. So I really hope she's listening, and I want to ask her some questions now because I know offhandedly a couple of times she's told me about moments that she's had where she like maybe could feel that the person was still there or hadn't like really moved on, or even she could feel like it was like about to happen. She's had like moments like that, I think. So,
Yeah.
my gosh, I want to grill her on everything now.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of weird because that's my dream job would be like a death doula, essentially.
Yeah.
Like assisting
However,
someone.
yeah, basically, even classes of people, like literally being hired to go into nursing homes and, you know, to be a death doula, like an actual death doula, you have to know, Jewish religion, Christianity, Catholicism. You have to know every single religion because you have to be able to know what each individual is going through. And it's so weird because I've always been drawn to that. That's what I've always wanted to do. That's still like, if you asked me if you could do anything in the world, what would it be? It was like death doula. That's what I want to do. However, I don't know why, because the thought of like a person that I even speak to once dying makes me want to curl up in a ball and stay in bed forever.
Yeah.
How? What?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
I love that inclination. Yeah. I mean, I have a few friends who are death doulas and, or like training to be death doulas. And I think it's super important because so many people don't know how to facilitate death.
Yeah.
And like, it's pretty bad, especially in this country. And like, so many more people would be having an easier transition. Like, I remember when my grandpa died and how it was so challenging because like no one even wanted to talk about the fact that he was dying. It's like we wouldn't even say that word in front of him, and like he was so afraid to die, and it was just like, it was not comforting, you know. It wasn't like, it wasn't peaceful and it wasn't comforting. And the thing about being a death doula is you help the person be not in turmoil while they're passing over, you know. It's like, it's such an important part of the cycle of life and death and humanity that I think there's not enough people who do it. But here in Denver, or close to Denver, there is a hospital that my friend works for, and they have a program called No One Dies Alone that you can actually volunteer for.
Oh, wow.
And so you can maybe even check it out. You could see if that's something that like you can handle.
Yeah, because part of me is like, I can't handle it because it's so important, and I would see how important it was to that person, and how, you know, you can really see like the good that you're doing, and that would be worth it. And then the other part of me is like, you are so emotional, you are so sensitive. Like, how could you even possibly think that you could do this?
Yeah, but part of the,
I
think that part of being a death doula is being really sensitive, because you have to be.
Yeah, I feel like that'll make you better.
Yeah, we're so like conditioned to be afraid of death and not have any relationship with it, even though it literally happens to like all of our plants every freaking year. Everyone we know,
every week for me and Lauren,
all the time.
Everything that we see that is living eventually dies, so it shouldn't be that difficult for us. So I think, you know, once you are actually in the experience, it might be a really fulfilling thing for you.
True.
You know,
Yeah.
and we need more death doulas in the world. So if you're listening and you're like, I think I might want to try being a death doula, go to your local hospital, and maybe not during COVID.
Yeah, maybe.
Because they're not doing that
Wait
right now.
a little bit.
But like, you know, volunteer to like hold someone's hand and sit by their bed while they're, you know, going through that. Because it's like, it's such a wonderful thing to be able to help people through.
Yeah. Ashley, I think you'd be great at it.
I do too.
I've always felt very compelled to do it. It's just that conflicting, like, girl, you know yourself. That must be too hard. We have two more questions.
Cool.
One of them is, and I think we've already kind of touched on this on the episodes that you've been on before, but do you have any additional advice on getting in touch with your ancestors and how to listen to them as they help guide us?
I love ancestor work. Yes. So I wanted to I love that question because in my experience, our ancestors are embodied within us. So like we are our ancestors.
Right.
And so for me, I've been doing a lot of, over the last 3 years, I've been doing a lot of like trauma healing. I've been doing a lot of anti-racism work and decolonizing and like anti-capitalist work and just like kind of raking through all this like muck that exists within my psyche. And that is a product of my ancestors' experiences. And so I think that the starting point of working with our ancestors is working on healing ourselves, because through doing that, we help to release some of their emotions and their experiences through our work. And I had an ancestor who he was unwell and confused, and I didn't really know how to work with him. And this was like 1.5 years ago. And so I would give offerings to him, and I would kind of keep him away because I didn't want to be dealing with him. And then I've been doing all this like healing work on myself through 2020. And recently he came to me and was like, I'm not confused anymore because of the work you've been doing. And that was really cool because to me that signaled like, oh, I work with my ancestors by working with myself. So that's like one part.
And also you're helping the world and you're helping the other world.
Yeah, definitely. And another way that I really like to work with my ancestors that I've been shown is by doing things with my hands that they did. So like if you had ancestors who like quilted or did embroidery, or if they really liked to cook or garden, or like specific types of permaculture, whatever systems that they used and that they did with their hands. Like if you work with your hands doing things that your ancestors love to do, it's like you get to like almost have this like tactile connection with them.
Yeah, that's very cool.
I also do use Samhain or Halloween as an opportunity to like make a feast for the ancestors and like give offerings to them and honor them. And then as for like being guided by them, our bodies hold a lot of intergenerational information. So for instance, I was having like, at the beginning of COVID, I was having like a panicked like scarcity moment where I was just like so afraid of not having enough money. And like, I was so afraid of scarcity that my whole body was like, it's like I was having a panic attack. And so when I'm having an emotional experience like that, I will calm down and I will be like, okay, where's the root? What caused this like feeling? Why do I feel this way? It has to be connected to something. And nothing in my life mimics that feeling. So I had to go back further, and I landed on my great grandmother who, during the Great Depression, her husband died and she had 2 children and she had to live and she couldn't work. So she experienced like extreme scarcity. So I was feeling her feelings essentially like as intergenerational trauma. And so through that, I was able to work with her and release some of that stuff. And I felt those feelings for her and I moved them. And I also asked her to not, use my body to experience that stuff anymore. So like, they will tell you what is wrong with them if you want to help them to work out trauma that is intergenerational. But as for like our ancestors that are like our well ancestors that we want to be having lots of guidance from, the ones that are very well integrated and more ancient, for me, the way that I work with them is again by trying to do things that they did with their hands and like practice things within their cultures that were meaningful to them, like holidays and like learning about mythology and folklore that they cherished and stuff like that. But also just, I do like meditation rituals for myself. And I do have, I usually send like a whole written document on how to do that to my clients that want to work with their ancestors more as just like a way to honor them. But it's like to be short with what it is setting up an altar for the ancestors, putting out offerings, and like stating out loud that you'd like to work with them, and then just putting on some type of repetitive drumming or like soundscape or something and going into a meditation and waiting and seeing, what comes through.
Yeah. There are guided meditations as well. that can help you with that. I know that always really, really helps.
I definitely
me do
need the
any
guidance.
type of
Yeah,
meditation.
I can't just do it on my own. My mind won't quiet down unless I have the guidance.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like, again, working with ourselves is such a big piece of working with our ancestors. Like, for example, you know, if you're in a relationship where you're like married and you're not happy, and how many of our female identifying, or like, I guess, you know, they didn't have an option at that time period, in the last few generations of women have been like forced to be married and forced to have children.
Right.
And forced to stay
when they didn't want to stay.
Thought they had no other way out.
Right. So like for, you know, my female ancestors, me saying no to a relationship that doesn't work for me is actually liberating to them. And they're like helping me to see, like, you don't have to do this anymore. You know, you don't have to pretend that you're happy. Or for me, I don't have children, and I don't know if I want to physically have children with my body, because a lot of my ancestors were forced to have 5, 10, 12 children.
Right.
Against their will. And that's something that I can work with them in the sense of I'm going to make that choice to not do that with my body, or like be really clear on it, that it is my choice when I decide that I want to do that, if that's something I decide I want to do. So I hope this is helpful. It's like, it's not as like wonderful and magical as, you know, getting awesome downloads from our ancient ancestors that are just like, who are always just like, be quiet, turn off your cell phone, go outside, sit next to a tree, listen to music.
Right.
That's all they want us to do.
Yeah.
You know? But to help our like injured, more recent ancestors, it's like we have to do this like more heavy ancestral work, and it's liberating to ourselves too, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful that they're kind of commenting on your relationships, you know, that they can kind of be helpful in that way of like, oh my goodness, please don't make the same mistake that I did. You don't need this relationship. Move on to the next. Like, they're kind of helping you to have those standards, which is interesting.
Yeah, or just like freedom and sovereignty.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking from a female perspective because I identify that way. But like this can be for, you know, any gender identifying person. Like, it's like our ancestors help us to know our truth, and that's what we need to follow, which is like when we're not living in our truth, it's really clear because we're uncomfortable all the fucking time. That's how I would say to work with our ancestors.
Yeah, and maybe maybe over the Christmas break we can come up with a little keep it weird helpful guide that's a little bit different than the ones that you give your clients, that we can help when listeners write in and ask. Because we get questions for you all the time. It's not even just when you're like on an episode. They'll just be like, hey, can you ask Amy?
Yeah. Everyone wants to know.
Okay, sure. I'll reach out.
Yeah. I'm working on compiling a library for my website right now of downloadable information so that people who can't afford to have a session with me can still have access to information.
Yeah. That's so great.
But I also want to say that I am also offering sliding scale for everybody. So that's a new thing that I just implemented. But yeah, I'm working on putting those documents on my website, and they should be up probably by the end of January.
Last question, and this is like totally optional for you, and it depends on like how you're feeling, if you have the energy to do this. The last question was basically, is anything at all coming through as a message to share with me, with Lauren, with our listeners as a whole, or randomly with a specific listener that might be listening?
I was going to ask if Ashley didn't.
No, there is, like, the first word that I'm hearing just straight up is just decolonize, which is kind of like a buzzword right now, but it is really important because we have been, like, our minds have been, like, colonized, and our I don't support, like, rugged individualism, but, like, our sovereignty has been tampered with by people who look at us as dollar bills and not as human beings. And like that culture needs to shift. And that's like the main download that I've been getting is we need to like work on regaining our own sovereignty and like shifting the way that we function in society to be congruent with our truth, with our heart truth and our heart knowing, and not putting up with things just because it's easy.
Or we're expected to.
Right. It's like you have to create these new traditions and create these new ways of being so that people don't have to be suffering on such like large scales, because like the idea that there's not enough food to go around is false. And the idea that we have to do things that terrorize our environment and our earth and groups of people in order to just like make money, which is a fucking fake thing that we made up anyway, it's just insanity. And so like I did a divination on Halloween, and what came through was like, it is time to do that, like become honest with ourselves and become honest with the way that we are experiencing our lives and feel the true feelings that we have been harboring and allow them to like come out in a healthy way and like integrate our trauma, but also like decolonize our way of living, and start to build community in a way that we have been conditioned and like brainwashed into not doing. Like the idea that like a family on a street can be starving when there are other families that have excess food on the street is like, it's just wrong, and it's not human. Like the way that we are meant to function is in a village, and the way that we help each other is in a village. Like we're not supposed to be doing all of this stuff alone. Like we're not even supposed to be parenting alone, you know? And I'm not saying like it's wrong for you to be like a single parent or something like that. I'm saying that it's not natural, and that's why it's not easy, you know? So and this isn't my opinion. Like I feel this way also, yes, but it's like basically the downloads that I've been getting are like, it is time to stop putting up with bullshit. Take the sacrifice, you know, make the sacrifice. And it's like so much easier said than done, you know?
Yeah.
Like as a human being, I'm just like, but I live in capitalism, so how am I supposed to like function without participating in it? I guess it's baby steps, you know, because I'm like, I argue with these downloads that I get because I'm like, how are we even supposed to do that? What is like, what? I'm going to go to jail if I don't pay taxes.
Yeah.
Like,
how do I survive?
And it's like, at the end of the day, always brings back down to the heart. Like, what does your heart say? Like, what is the decision? Like, are you going to be okay if you do this, this, and this, which are the right things to do? And for me, it's like always yes, you know? And it's like, even if I don't believe it's going to work out, it always works out if I've done what my heart is telling me is the right thing to do. And I know it's like, it's challenging and it's daunting, but it's like, it's baby steps. And what we have to start with is ourselves. So it's like, before we can like shift the systems, we have to shift the way that we function first. We have to shift the systems in our bodies. You know, we have to stop participating in cultures that are harming the earth and harming our own, you know, mental health and things like this, which is, you know, it's really hard. It's really hard. I wish that I could be the type of medium who's just like going to give you all this like magical bullshit and be like, it's going to be all okay. But we have responsibilities, and we have to, you know, we have to change the way that we've been functioning. And that's the main download that I've been getting is like, we have to take responsibility individually and collectively.
Psst. Hey, weirdos. If you are a $5 or a $10 patron of our show, you can catch about 15-ish more minutes of this episode, and Amy tells us about the ghosts in our apartment. Check it out at www.patreon.com/keepitweirdpodcast. This has been amazing as usual. Not like I thought it would be.
And of course, it's like a million hours long as usual because I can't stop talking.
Neither can we. But thank you.
It was truly wonderful.
So much for hanging out with us for our season 4 finale.
I'm so happy to be back on the pod, bro.
Yeah, we'll have you on every season, and also
I love that.
We can't wait to physically see you again.
Yeah,
that is going to be the day. Everyone, make sure that you're following Amy on Instagram at House of Heron's Eye. We tag her in a lot of stuff, so you'll see that. And consider, you know, visiting her website, setting up a session with her, because you do remote sessions. You do it like over Skype or over.
All of my sessions are remote.
Perfect.
And I do it over Zoom. Yeah.
Oh,
So
great.
it's actually easier for me to do it that way. I thought it was going to be more challenging, but it's easier for me
Wow.
to tap in that way because I have
That's
my
so
like
interesting.
space set up so well. Yeah, it works. It works really well.
Great.
Oh, good.
Also, do you want to announce your new thing?
Yeah. Okay. So, in 2021, I will be releasing a podcast that I'm
Woo!
starting, and it's going to be
Yeah.
a like interview podcast, and we're going to talk about wellness and spirituality and the future of humanity, and also try to like laugh and have a good time.
Well,
Yay.
however many listeners we have, you can bet your ass you're going to start off with that many because I'm pretty sure everyone's going to subscribe
Seriously.
to your show as soon as it goes up.
That's really, really lovely and flattering. And I've really enjoyed everybody that I've met, and anybody who reached out to me. I was getting a lot of messages at one point, and I kind of have like technology overwhelm, so it's sort of challenging for me to message on Instagram. So I apologize if I didn't get back to you in a timely manner, or if I wasn't able to get back to you, but I really appreciate anybody reaching out and participating in my offerings and getting to work with you, and you guys are all awesome, and I believe in you.
Lovely.
Thank you, Amy.
I'm happy to be here. So great.
Talking to Amy is like being able to talk to a wise old tree.
Like Mother Willow from Pocahontas.
Yes. Or that old fairy from Fern Gully, and I don't know her
Ugh.
name.
I don't either, but gosh, I
Krista?
wanted her to be my
That one?
grandmother.
Yeah.
Probably.
The one that holds the seeds.
Yes. Oh, I wanted to hold the seeds the way she did. She had so much power in her hands.
She made the
It was-
seeds glow.
It was so magical. Yeah, Amy is, she's just so wonderful. And you feel so safe when you're
Calm.
talking to her.
Yeah.
Yeah, calm and safe.
Yeah, I was going to say, I even like editing her episodes. She just has she has a calming effect to her.
She does. And a wonderful voice to listen to.
One thing Amy wanted us to plug that we didn't get to in the episode is that every month she holds a community care circle over on Zoom. And it's the second Sunday every month. So the next one is January 10th. And you can just go to houseofheronseye.com and then click on the classes gatherings tab. And it's the first thing you'll see. And there's a Zoom link there, as well as all the other information you need, like the time and what you'll do. It's free. Obviously, donations are appreciated and welcome, but the circle is free. So if you're interested, please do so. She would love to have you.
And that just sounds amazing. So get on it.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much, Amy. I know we thanked you in the episode for being a part of our finale and wrapping up the 4th season of our show.
What a great way to wrap it up with you, Amy. Thank you so much.
Yes, that is all the time we have for Keep It Weird. We hope that you learned the true meaning of Christmas this year, that it's not about the presents or flying across the country or getting to watch the parade. We have a parade here in NoHo.
Fun.
It's about the love we have for each other and sharing that love, whether that is by shouting it from the rooftop or wearing a mask to protect each other or making sure our fellow human beings are taken care of no matter what their income is, who they voted for, or where they live.
Beautiful.
We will be back towards the end of February or the beginning of March, depending on where it all shakes out. We are going on hiatus, which is a much needed break in terms of rest and battling through what is hopefully the end of this pandemic.
Ooh, amen, girl.
We will still be releasing new episodes on our Patreon as well as sending out newsletters. So if anyone is not looking forward to several weeks without a new episode of the show, you can get some there. And there's also a backlog of like 20 Patreon episodes and videos.
Correct.
We really can't thank you enough. I know we're just like kind of a broken record at this point, but you guys mean the world to us and we just can't thank you enough for doing this show with us.
Yeah, we're not just saying this because we can't think of anything else to say. All we seem to say is thank you lately. It's because we truly, truly mean it. There would not be a season 4 of this show if it wasn't for you guys, our listeners, our supporters, our besties. We've become such good friends with all of you on social media now. We absolutely adore you and are so lucky to have people who are so involved. You don't just listen, you're messaging us, you're giving us ideas. Like this, our finale came from a listener. So we're just obsessed with you. We're so lucky to have you.
We really are. I think I'm feeling the love and the gratefulness so much, especially like the last part of this year, simply because I'm now realizing like what would I have done without the show?
100%. Yeah. We were battling horrible mental health issues and the show kind of pulled us up.
Yeah. So that's all you guys. So thank you again for the billionth time.
Yep.
And
we mean it.
We will see you next year. Lauren, what is the last line of A Christmas Carol?
God bless us, everyone.
God bless us, everyone. Merry Christmas, guys.
Merry Christmas. We'll see you next year. I mean, I sounded like I was going to a hoedown. It's a whole lot of fun.
Y'all.
Y'all come down.
Y'all come back.